Sun Wukong came to seek me as his master, yet he was unaware that I am but a man who can barely crush a chicken, let alone defend myself, and who is currently riddled with ailments. Furthermore, I had no idea that my own disciple was the legendary great sage equaling heaven, Sun Wukong. Though I arrived in this world with a transmigrator system, it requires 500 years to fully activate. To avoid being smashed to death by a single strike from this monkey, I was forced to grit my teeth and accept him as my disciple. Even though I possess no knowledge of divine cultivation techniques or immortal arts, there was a sage who once proclaimed, "Physical vitality is the most precious foundation of cultivation." Thus, I solemnly instructed Wukong, "As long as you temper your physical body to its absolute limit, you shall be free to roam the three realms as you please. Master, will this path grant me eternal life?" Outwardly, I scolded him harshly, but inwardly I was trembling with anxiety. Look at the mortals. Do you not see that the robust always outlive the frail and the sick? Once your physical body reaches a certain level of strength, lifespan equal to heaven and earth will be but a trifling matter. Moving mountains, draining seas, or plucking stars from the sky, anything you desire can be achieved. The monkey was stunned into silence upon hearing this. He thought to himself that it was precisely because he was stronger than the other monkeys that he had become the great king of Huaguo Mountain. Thinking this, he found my words to be profoundly reasonable. The monkey had clearly been successfully deceived by me, and had begun to draw his own wild conclusions. And so, I began his hellish training regimen. Squats, long-distance running, and push-ups. Everything was arranged. If 100 were not enough, then 1,000. Then 10,000. Regardless, as long as he did not train himself to death, he was to push himself to the absolute limit. I pointed toward the horizon and instructed my disciple, "First, run 1 lap around this island, and while you're at it, gather some fruit for your master to inspect." The monkey said nothing, turning and running with all his might. Upon returning from his lap, drenched in sweat, he felt that his strength had indeed increased significantly. He excitedly presented the fruit, his eyes filled with anticipation as he asked what the next stage of training would be. I had been starving for days, my stomach growling incessantly, yet I had to maintain an air of complete indifference. I slowly gnawed on a piece of fruit and pointed to the side. "Tomorrow, jump into the water and continue training your swimming. When you can swim a full lap in 1 hour, we shall proceed to the next stage of training. In the evenings, your master shall teach you a class on literature." The so-called cultural studies class was, in truth, merely a session of telling Xiangxia legends. The curriculum consisted entirely of the very novels I had read before my transmigration. The protagonists within those stories were all masters of grandstanding, their schemes layered one after another. Regardless, as long as the monkey cultivated according to those tales, if he succeeded, it was due to my superior teaching, and if he failed, it was due to his own lack of comprehension. By any calculation, I stood nothing to lose. Yet who could have expected the monkey to become so enthralled by every word as if he longed to take the protagonist's place and fulfill that fated 3-year appointment himself? Until night fell, and the monkey found himself unable to sleep, tossing and turning. Half of it was regret that the story I was telling had stopped at the most critical juncture, while the other half was a lamentation that after wandering the mortal realm for so many years, he had finally encountered a truly profound master. Though his master was strict, there was no ambiguity when it came to providing guidance on the path of cultivation. The cultural lesson this evening had touched upon methods of practice that bore a striking resemblance to qi refinement. Surely, the master was still concealing even more formidable manuals, waiting for the right moment to reveal them. The more he pondered, the more exhilarated he became. The monkey sat upright to begin his cultivation, and with each rhythmic breath, strands of heaven and earth energy began to weave their way into his body. Feeling the formidable power surging within him, the monkey stood stunned, realizing why the master often chided him for his foolishness. It turned out the true secret of cultivation had been imparted to him long ago, yet this foolish monkey had failed to grasp it. In the adjacent room I had not closed my eyes all night, paralyzed by a trembling fear. The man-eating demons lurking outside had eyes that burned with a ghostly green hue. They had prowled around our dilapidated shack for the entire night, until the following morning, when I deliberately chose the highest boulder upon which to stand, facing the sea breeze, my robes fluttering, as I strove to cultivate the appearance of a transcendently enlightened expert. Having been thoroughly indoctrinated by the cultural class the night before, the monkey bowed to me until his forehead touched the earth. He held his hands in a respectful salute, his eyes burning with fervor, eagerly awaiting the day's instruction. As for the concept of my lesson, it was quite simple. I did not consider what he lacked, but rather what I craved. After a moment of deliberation, I decided today's lesson would be to catch some fish. I gestured toward the ocean, assuming an expression of profound depth. Anyone can catch fish with their hands, but if you can catch them without using your hands at all, that is true mastery. These words sounded mystical, but in reality they contained no technique whatsoever. After all, one could utilize a fish hook, a net, or even blast them out of the water with explosives if one wished. But the monkey's line of reasoning was on an entirely different frequency than my own. This was no ordinary task assigned by my master. It was clearly a trial, for he must have realized I had grasped the method of chi refinement. That is why he devised this specific challenge for me. At that very moment, my figure in white robe stood with its back turned toward the monkey. In the monkey's eyes, a layer of brilliant radiance seemed to manifest around me. It gazed out toward the endless expanse of the sea, reflecting upon the knowledge acquired over these past few days. A profound sense of enlightenment suddenly washed over it. Unexpectedly, the monkey had truly attained a moment of epiphany. It let out a thunderous roar, and the internal true energy within its body surged outward instantly. The surface of the sea immediately erupted into violent, churning waves. Within a few short breaths, the water was blanketed by a layer of floating, white-bellied fish. Die, all of you. The monkey leaped into the air, overcome with excitement. Master, I have realized it. I used my true energy to stun them to death without ever lifting a finger. This was the assignment I presented to him, yet deep down, a man of limited knowledge such as myself was screaming in frustration. With hundreds of fish floating here, do you take me for blind? On this scale, you clearly should have used a net to surround them. It had obviously grown weary of the effort, and simply dived into the sea to gather them up carelessly. Though my heart was filled with disdain, I maintained a stern and composed expression, and so, with an indifferent look, I gave a single nod. I had already calculated the next task, one I deemed impossible for it to complete, leaving the mountain. Over the next few days, no matter what technique the monkey attempted, it could not shake the mountain in the slightest. Watching its frustrated expression, as it scratched its ears and head in desperation, I hid inside my dwelling, nearly bursting into laughter. For if things had continued at the monkey's previous rate of cultivation, I feared that soon enough, I would have had nothing left to teach it. Disciple, I see that you have encountered a bottleneck. To put it plainly, you lack practical combat experience. Reading 10,000 books is not as valuable as traveling 10,000 miles. You have yet to engage in a true, decisive battle. This island is occupied by many demons and beasts, which serve as the perfect opponents for your training. Upon hearing this, the monkey's eyes ignited with fervor as it began to silently flex its limbs. Having cultivated for so long, it had long been eager to find someone to fight. I added one final remark. In all things, if you cannot defeat your opponent, flee. Do not be foolish and charge headlong into every battle. If the situation is dire, your priority must be to escape. Upon hearing this, the monkey's eyes immediately turned crimson. They say the immortals view mortals as nothing more than blades of grass. Yet Master is nothing like those gods and Buddhas. You truly care for me, as if I were your own flesh and blood. I secretly curled my lip, thinking that I only fear you perishing, for then I would have no one left to protect me. For the past few days, the great demons in this vicinity have been watching me, urging the monkey to put his skills to the test. To speak plainly, they are merely sending him out to clear the battlefield. Before departing, the monkey respectfully requested that I bestow upon him a single technique. I paused for a moment, my mind racing at full speed, when suddenly, an idea sparked within me. Your master possesses an introductory cultivation technique, I said. Compress the entirety of your spirit power between the palms of your hands. When the time comes to unleash it, let out a thunderous roar. Domain expansion. The monkey rushed out, eager and unable to wait to put it to the test. In the blink of an eye, he formed a seal with his hands, and the spirit energy within his body surged violently. Following a resounding roar, he cried, "Domain expansion!" The very next second, the space around him began to twist and distort, centered entirely upon his form. A vast, pitch-black domain rumbled open. Within the domain, the heavens and earth changed hue. Infinite darkness swallowed all things, leaving only the monkey standing at the center, his body radiating a brilliant golden light. He snapped his eyes open, his pupils reflecting the entirety of his domain. Within this space, every one of his techniques possessed a lethal effect. Wherever he passed, not a blade of grass remained, and even massive boulders were reduced to ash. Having mastered this move, the monkey began to slaughter the minor demons on Fangkun Island with a manic fervor, finishing each one with a single strike or blow of his staff. It continued until he encountered a tiger spirit that had cultivated for 1,000 years. The tiger had initially intended to fight him head-on, but upon witnessing the monkey unleash such advanced spirit combat techniques, the tiger spirit knelt on the spot. It was not because he could not defeat the monkey, but because he knew ordinary demons could never possess the arts of the immortals. Therefore, backing this youth, there must surely be a legendary figure. If he struck the child, and the master arrived to seek retribution, his millennia of cultivation would likely be insufficient to even tickle the master's teeth. The tiger spirit rolled onto the ground, feigning misery and muttering, "I will not fight with you anymore." The monkey suddenly found the situation quite dull. He told himself, "Very well, today is not the day. We shall settle this another time." The tiger spirit felt like weeping, yet no tears would fall. It felt as though it were being forced to relocate, But the monkey's next action left it utterly stunned. The monkey actually produced a cultivation manual, claiming it would pass this technique down so the tiger could practice properly. The monkey's original intention was that the stronger the tiger spirit became, the more worthy an opponent it would be to spar with. It never would have dreamed that the tiger's speed of progression would be so absurdly fast. During their second encounter, the monkey was beaten until its face was bruised, and it could barely stand. Yet it did not feel discouraged. On the contrary, it was more excited than ever. That evening, the master held another lecture. Last time, it had learned a divine technique that allowed it to sweep across the entirety of Feng Kun Island. What the master was teaching this time was surely even more formidable. That evening, I casually fabricated a story about a protagonist who relied on a Huang-grade cultivation technique to conquer the world. Unexpectedly, upon hearing this, the monkey experienced an immediate enlightenment. Right on the spot, it comprehended the god-devil suppressing prison physique. It is said that once all 840 million god-devil particles are awakened, one can shatter the firmament, pluck the moon, and swallow the sun with a single thought. Before this, the monkey had thought that simply moving a mountain was an impressive feat. Only now did it realize that its previous goal was no different from a child playing with toys. The master's cultivation realm must have already reached the high heavens. Once the monkey left, I wiped the cold sweat from my brow. I pondered to myself what I should invent for it next time. At this moment, the monkey had already sat cross-legged in meditation, and one could see the boundless spiritual energy of heaven and earth pouring madly into its body. Before long, it had condensed its first god-devil particle within its body. As it absorbed more and more spiritual energy, the god-devil particles began to continuously divide. 1 became 2, 2 became 4, and by midnight, it had already condensed over 1,000 particles. The monkey could clearly feel its physical strength surging and erupting, as if it could level everything in its path with its physical form alone. It snapped its eyes open, and golden light erupted from its pupils. It was time to return to the tiger spirit and reclaim its dignity. The tiger spirit was beaten until it could not even cry out in misery. It could not understand when this monkey had become so ferocious, to the point where even its own greatest strength, its physical body, could not compare. Previously, when the monkey taught it how to cultivate, it could at least serve as a worthy sparring partner. Now, it had lost even that role. It couldn't even stand to be a punching bag anymore. In the tiger spirit's heart, there was nothing but profound admiration. To have encountered such a magnificent master, this monkey must have had ancestors who accumulated merit for 8 lifetimes. Through day after day of diligent cultivation, the monkey spent only half a year condensing 84,000 god-devil particles. Each particle contained the power of a dragon elephant. The great mountains that were once immovable could now be overturned with a single finger. At that very moment, black clouds gathered in the sky, and heavenly lightning descended in torrents, as if it cost nothing at all. However, those 84,000 divine demon particles within him stood firm, blocking the lightning. The thunder struck his body, yet he felt no pain. Instead, it only served to temper his physical form, making it increasingly formidable. Such a massive disturbance was sensed by Patriarch Subhuti, all the way at the Cave of the Slanted Moon and 3 Stars. He performed a divination, hoping to discern which great demon was undergoing a heavenly tribulation, only to find that he could calculate nothing. Could it be that some peerless expert had concealed the heavenly secrets? We are currently at a critical juncture of the Journey to the West tribulation, a grand drama that the Buddhist sect has meticulously orchestrated for countless eons. According to the original plan, he should have arrived by now to seek tutelage. This is a game of chess that the Celestial Court and the Buddhist sect have long since arranged. Yet, even now, there is no sign of him. It seems the protagonist has arrived somewhat late, but there was one thing Patriarch Subhuti could not have foreseen. This monkey did not merely arrive late. He had absolutely no intention of coming at all. At that moment, the monkey was busy fretting, distressed because he did not know what to feed me. After a year of teaching him culture, I began to complain. Throughout this entire year, the meals served were nothing more than fruits plucked from trees or fish caught from the sea. Even a saint could not endure eating such things day after day. The more the monkey heard, the more his heart ached. Master is clearly a true immortal. He should be feasting on dragon liver and phoenix marrow. To educate me, you have been forced to reside in this desolate place. Having eaten plain vegetables for an entire year, he knelt on the ground and kowtowed heavily. He swore to find genuine spiritual food for his master. Thus, he took the tiger spirit and charged straight toward the West Sea. Consequently, while catching fish in the West Sea, he provoked the dragon clan. Given the current strength of the monkey and the tiger spirit, the vanguard general sent by the Dragon Palace was struck dead on the spot. Unexpectedly, the vanguard, before his death, used his remaining strength to crush a dragon scale. The monkey saw the shattered dragon scale but remained unfazed, returning triumphantly to Feng Kun Mountain with the tiger vanguard. I had just intended to lie down for a moment when a pungent stench of blood assaulted my nose, and my expression shifted instantly. These 2 fools must have committed a slaughter, And it surely wasn't some insignificant opponent they had killed. Thousands of thoughts flashed through my mind. A demon accustomed to killing. If one day his murderous intent flares, would he also take the convenience of butchering? The more I contemplated the situation, the more alarmed I became. The matter was truly grave. I rose abruptly and began to scold them on the spot, my demeanor sharp and severe. The monkey, startled by my outburst, collapsed to the ground and began to confess everything that had transpired in the Western Sea. Upon hearing its account, I remained silent for a long time. The fury on my face slowly faded into deep disappointment. I heaved a slow sigh. The deed was already done. Why did you not understand that when pulling weeds, one must remove the roots? How could you let those few escape to report the news? Did you wait for the Western Sea Dragon Palace to march their armies to our very doorstep? The monkey stood stunned, and the fox spirit was equally bewildered. Both demons stared at each other blankly, only now belatedly realizing the gravity of their actions today. How foolish could they have been? I shook my head in weariness. It seems that teaching you how to act with propriety is far more important than your cultivation. Implementing a course on moral conduct has become an absolute necessity at this stage. Today, your master shall tell you a story. Long ago, I had a friend who was also a spirit monkey. Having attained the Tao and become an immortal, all the gods and Buddhas in the heavens had to take a detour when they saw him, respectfully addressing him as the great sage equal to heaven. Unfortunately, that monkey was far too arrogant. He wreaked havoc in the underworld and trampled the celestial palace, acting with such lawless abandonment that he was ultimately struck down by a Buddhist grandmaster and pinned beneath the Five-Finger Mountain. Do you grasp the lesson behind this tale? The monkey blinked, and then hesitantly replied, "Is it because that spirit monkey was even more powerful than that grandmaster?" Hearing that, I felt as if I were about to vomit blood. I truly do not know who is now sitting on that lotus throne. This blockhead had completely missed the point. He truly failed to realize the severity of the problem. If they continue to act so recklessly, sooner or later, they will be suppressed, just like that monkey. Today, your master will teach you the true essence of cultivation. Those who stand at the pinnacle of power between heaven and earth share one common trait: humility. The monkey wore a look of utter confusion. To him, a transcendent expert like his master could never be associated with such a word as humility. After pondering it for a long while, he finally begged me to provide an explanation. Perhaps you do not yet understand the meaning of humility. Let your master phrase it differently. It is called prudence. In the eyes of the heavenly Tao and the sages, all living things are merely grass and straw. No matter how much the grass dances, so long as you lack the strength to overturn the chessboard, even if all the gods and Buddhas in the heavens were to perish, the seat of power would never fall to you. If only the great sage equaling heaven of old had understood the meaning of patience and stability. Had he known to cultivate in the shadows and nurture his strength, then let alone the throne of the world, even the heavenly Dako itself would have been conquered by him. My words left the monkey stunned into silence. It had only ever thought of fighting gods and immortals. It had never considered that one could contend against the heavens. Truly, its perspective was narrow. As for the tiger spirit beside it, it was deeply shaken, its mind overwhelmed by a profound sense of shock. It was truly unbelievable. Initially, it had only intended to follow me to learn a few supernatural techniques to earn its keep. Who could have expected that as soon as I opened my mouth, I would speak of overturning the heavenly Tao and destroying the gods and Buddhas? It felt as if this entire script had gone horribly wrong. Would it be too late to request a retreat now? It seems my decision to use the journey to the west as a subject for my grandiloquence had clearly terrified the two demons. Regardless, simply painting a grand vision for them is sufficient. As long as these monsters have a goal to strive toward, that is enough. Now, Master will instruct you both on the way of the gentleman. You must remember well, those who stand at the pinnacle of strength in this world are never those who crave mindless battle. Every action they take is exceptionally calculated and steady. Before they make a single move, they have already scrutinized thousands of potential outcomes. Even if you become powerful in the future, before these old foxes, you will remain nothing more than novices fresh out of the starting village. Only by learning how to conduct yourselves as men can you ever hope to progress further. The teachings I impart today are the quintessences distilled from the Holy Scriptures and the Tao Te Ching. I lectured until the night wore thin. My throat was parched, and I soon retired to sleep. As for how much these two demons could grasp, that would depend entirely on their own destiny. I had lectured with sufficient dedication. As for the content, those who understand. I took my leave. The monkey scratched its head and paced frantically, recognizing every character individually. But when pieced together, it was no different from a celestial scroll beyond mortal comprehension. The tiger spirit was equally bewildered, completely unable to discern the true meaning. But since Master had taught that one should not be ashamed to ask questions, Sun Wukong, though reluctant, forced himself to become the interpreter. Beginning to contemplate every word and phrase, Master said, Sun Wukong muttered, passing away like this, it never ceases day or night. This, passing, must surely refer to oneself, it reasoned, and those, passing away, must certainly refer to the demons Master has slain. Put together, it means that the demons Master killed have their corpses drifting along the river, never ceasing, day or night, without a moment of rest. As the monkey translated, its eyes began to glow with newfound clarity. Suddenly, it felt as though the clouds had parted to reveal the sun. So the reason Master was so busy was because he had fought to bring the demons of the world to their knees. Whoever refuses to submit shall be beaten to death and cast into the river to feed the fish. It took a deep breath, feeling that it was drawing ever closer to the truth. Even its master, who possessed the appearance of a celestial sage, was a ruthless soul who had risen from a sea of blood and a mountain of corpses. Yet, the tiger spirit did not share this view. It furrowed its brows and raised a question. Did Master not always teach us to remain steadfast? Killing a demon without destroying the body to leave no trace is simply not logical. Suddenly, the tiger spirit slapped its thigh. Brother Monkey, I understand now. The river that Master spoke of is not an ordinary river at all, but rather the river of time. Only by casting a corpse into the river of time can one truly and thoroughly destroy the remains, leaving nothing behind. Without even a shred of evidence remaining, the monkey and the tiger found their own deduction increasingly formidable. Following that, from the verse, "Only when the year grows cold do we see that the pine and cypress are the last to wither," they grasped yet another cultivation manual, claiming that one must endure the piercing cold for 10,000 years without thawing, transforming oneself into an ice sculpture, just like the pine and cypress, utilizing that extreme environment to temper the physical body. It is no wonder Master's temperament is so indifferent. It turns out he was frozen for far too long. The phrase, "Hear the way in the morning, and one may die without regret in the evening," was interpreted even more brilliantly. It suggests that morning is not the optimal time for cultivation, and that evening is the true auspicious hour. It was clearly a Confucian classic, yet these two fellows had twisted it into a secret cultivation technique. Had I been present to hear this twisted logic, I likely would have been so infuriated that I would have fainted on the spot. By the time midnight arrived, although I could see nothing, I could sense the spiritual energy in the surroundings, suddenly surging violently, rushing madly toward the monkey. All because the monkey had begun to cultivate, according to the sage's sutra, causing the spiritual energy on Feng Kun Island to transform into searing magic power, surging directly into its spiritual apertures. Immediately after, his cultivation base began to surge incessantly. With every passing hour, a profound transformation took place. It was relentless, showing no signs of stopping. My heart hammered against my ribs, wondering what manner of scheme this monkey was hatching now. As the first rays of the morning sun illuminated the bodies of the two demonic beasts, a thunderous roar echoed deep within Wukong's mind. Shortly thereafter, a pungent, foul stench erupted. As if something foul was being purged from his very flesh, clouds of tribulation began to coalesce in the sky. Thunder rumbled and lightning flickered. Though blind, I could still perceive it clearly. This was the unmistakable stirring of a heavenly tribulation. The monkey is on the verge of ascending to immortality. It was then that I suddenly recalled. This monkey was originally a Lingming stone monkey, possessed of an innate, heavenly physique, untainted by the dust of the mortal world. Yet, after consuming worldly food at Huaguo Mountain for so many years, its innate constitution had long since been compromised. No longer a true innate stone monkey. Had it retained that original, primordial aptitude, its rebellion against the heavenly palace would not have merely alarmed the Buddha. I fear it would have turned the heavenly court and its immortal pavilions upside down. But tonight, by practicing that saintly scripture, it had miraculously purged every impurity from its body, and through some mystical means, reforged its innate, heavenly physique. While I was still lost in thought, the heavenly lightning could no longer be restrained. Several bolts of silver lightning descended in unison, the first wave striking the monkey directly. Yet, the fool stood motionless, choosing to withstand the strike with his own physical body, though each subsequent bolt of heavenly thunder grew increasingly ferocious. Watching the consecutive waves of lightning tribulation descend, I heard a deafening blast. The monkey, unable to withstand the overwhelming power of heaven and earth, was sent flying by a massive bolt of violet lightning, crashing into the ground like a falling meteorite. My heart turned cold, convinced that the fool had met his end. But at that very moment, a laugh of unbridled arrogance erupted from the depths of the crater, shattering the shackles of the past. Now I realize that I am truly myself. I shall rampage through the three realms, with no equal, and I shall strike at the heavenly court without a shred of fear. Regardless, the monkey remained unharmed. It quickly crawled out from the deep, gaping pit. Brushing the dust from its body, it seemed quite at ease. Is this pathetic display truly worthy of being called a heavenly tribulation? He endured the lightning strikes until the fifth bolt. But suddenly, the heavens fell silent. For several hours there was no movement. And then, a lightning bolt of colossal proportions, several times larger than the previous ones, thundered down. Electric arcs surged and coiled around Wukong's entire body. The clothes upon his back were instantly reduced to ashes. He let out a low growl, his 10,000 immortal god-demon powers swirling madly within him, hungrily absorbing the entirety of the lightning's energy. The following 3 strikes were even more ruthless than the last. Complex, intertwined Dao patterns emerged across Wukong's forehead. He was now but a single step away from the true immortal realm. At that same moment, a small, snow-white dragon revealed its form amidst the clouds 1,000 miles away. It was Ao Li, the 3rd prince of the West Sea Dragon Palace, who had been searching for the one who slew the great immortal Feng. Little did he expect to witness someone undergoing the true immortal lightning tribulation. He hid within the clouds, eager to observe the spectacle. When the 129,000th bolt of the god-slaying lightning descended, Sun Wukong was utterly obliterated into smoke and dust. Yet, from the very depths of the smoldering ash, the teachings of the sages that I often spoke of suddenly manifested. An army may have its commander taken, but the will of a single man cannot be seized. In the instant his soul disintegrated into fine dust, a surge of Dabo energy sprouted from the void. Standing on the precipice between life and death, the monkey attained a profound new realization regarding my nonsensical musings. The god-slaying lightning struck once more. The brutal force slammed into him, and his soul was wiped away again. Yet, every time he was shattered, he forged his divine soul anew within the void, growing stronger with each reincarnation. Watching from afar, Ao Li could not help but tremble uncontrollably. Is this man truly braving the 8th stage of the Dao lightning tribulation by risking his life in such a manner? Back when he himself faced the 8th lightning strike, he had to rely on his clan's supreme treasures just to barely survive. His soul had only been slightly damaged, allowing him to use the power of the tribulation to repair and integrate his essence. Compared to the being before him, he felt like nothing more than a joke. But the truly terrifying ordeal was yet to come. The 9th stage of the lightning tribulation materialized into a human shape, and the dark clouds across the sky condensed into a supreme divine weapon. From the void, a voice boomed with an interrogation. Sun Wukong, do you acknowledge your crimes? The answer from the depths of the monkey's heart did not waver in the slightest. He holds no reverence for gods, nor does he respect the sages. In this heaven and earth, the only one he holds in true esteem is that useless, blind master of his. He unleashed a furious roar, throwing a punch that shattered the clouds and broke through all the shackles of the world. At the very moment of his ascension to immortality, the indestructible god-demon particles within his body instantly condensed into millions of fragments of soul and physical essence, simultaneously sublimating into an entirely new realm. Ao Li, hovering in the sky above the western sea, witnessed this entire spectacle, and could not help but draw a sharp, icy breath. He could no longer muster the will for revenge, wondering what manner of immortal deity was truly dwelling upon this island. He then set his sights on a distant direction, transformed into a bolt of white lightning, and vanished into the clouds without a trace. On the other side, the monkey had successfully overcome the lightning tribulation. It sat calmly amidst the scorched crater, closing its eyes to stabilize its cultivation base. I timed my arrival perfectly, appearing before the 2 demons clad in pristine white robes. Wukong and Hu Xianfeng hurriedly knelt to pay their respects. Master, we are both here. I smiled faintly and said in a leisurely tone, that thunder and rain just now was hardly anything worth mentioning, was it? Hu Xianfeng opened his mouth as if to speak, but promptly swallowed his words. A lightning tribulation of such terrifying magnitude, yet in the master's eyes, it was merely a drizzle of thunder and rain, no different from an ordinary storm. Upon reflection, it made perfect sense. What great winds and waves had he not witnessed before? He had likely seen scenes far more intense than Wukong's tribulation, so naturally, this was nothing unusual to him. Even the monkey began to realize the implications, and secretly contemplated the meaning. The master surely knew that the tribulation had been successfully overcome, so he intentionally called it a mere storm of thunder and rain, aiming to remind him to maintain a humble heart and not to become arrogant simply because he had achieved a minor ascension to immortality. Thinking this, Wukong bowed with folded hands. Master is correct. It was indeed a trivial display of thunder and rain, not worth mentioning at all. I nodded, though in truth, the thunder had been so loud that I had felt a bit uneasy, and curiously, I had seen the thunder but not a single drop of rain. It felt somewhat strange, but since both of them insisted it was a storm of thunder and rain, I supposed it was of no consequence. Next I shall continue to impart the sage scriptures to you both. Hu Xianfeng and Wukong exchanged a glance, their eyes filled with clear anticipation. In the days that followed, everything returned to its former rhythm. During the day, Wukong led Hu Xianfeng in physical training, push-ups, squats, and long-distance running. Nothing was left out. The monkey even imparted the god-demon prison-suppressing manual to the tiger. He instructed him to begin condensing his own indestructible god-demon particles, and combined with listening to me hold court each night, preaching the ways of a gentleman, Hu Xianfeng's cultivation After listening to my teachings for half a month, he had successfully advanced from the early stage of the Hidao realm to the late stage. He himself found this phenomenon truly bizarre. How could cultivation be as smooth and effortless as the passing of breath? He could hardly contain his frustration. Yet every time he reached the threshold of the late Hidao stage, the tiger spirit found himself stuck fast, unable to cross that barrier no matter what methods he employed. How could he not feel aggrieved? He had clearly witnessed the monkey brother break through to the true immortal realm as easily as one eats or drinks. Why then was it so arduous when his turn came? What left him feeling even more stifled was when he ran to ask the monkey if there were any secrets to achieving such a breakthrough. Wukong merely scratched his head, wearing a strange expression. Secrets? What secrets? Is crossing the immortal tribulation really that difficult? Isn't it something one can accomplish as easily as turning one's hand? At that moment, the monkey, who had already reached the late true immortal stage, spoke up. A gentleman plans for the way, not for food. A gentleman worries about the way, not about poverty. Because within the saintly scriptures I had taught, he could comprehend every cultivation technique and divine ability with ease. Yet those two characters, Junzi, remained profoundly elusive. Throughout the entire saintly scriptures, the term Junzi appeared hundreds of times, which showed just how much Master valued this way of the gentleman. And yet, Wukong could rack his brain indefinitely and still fail to grasp what this gentleman truly signified. Every cultivation method related to the gentleman remained beyond his understanding, as if a great door had barred his path, preventing him from advancing. Now during this most critical juncture of his cultivation, he found himself shackled by these two characters. If he could not clarify their meaning, there was no telling how many years of cultivation he might waste. Only now did he realize why I had been so adamant about not transmitting techniques directly at the start. Indeed, his aptitude was such that he could not even comprehend the word gentleman. He was truly hopelessly dull-witted, leaving him no choice but to swallow his pride and seek instruction. With this thought, the monkey cast aside his reservations and rushed straight toward the stone house where I resided. This dwelling was one I had ordered him to build when he first began his practice, under the pretense of refining his control over his strength. He had done a reasonably good job of it. The stone house stood square and sturdy, yet he always felt that for a transcendent being such as myself, this house remained far too crude. Inside, there was only a stone table, a few stone chairs, and on the wall hung items he had secretly procured. He had traveled 1,000 miles to a small town just to purchase the 4 treasures of the study. At this moment, clad in pristine white robes, I sat by the table, relying on the memories of my past life to transcribe famous quotes and poetry. My memory is exceptional, and ever since I transmigrated, it has become strangely potent. Yet, I have always believed that a sharp mind is no match for a dull pencil. If I think of a graceful poem or beautiful calligraphy, I commit it to paper. After all, I cannot see what lies ahead. On this desolate island, besides eating and sleeping, one must find ways to pass the time. Over time, it simply became a habit to practice my calligraphy. I often mused that if, by some chance, I were ever to leave this cursed place, these skills might prove useful as I traverse the vast world. My temperament now, beyond the facade of a peerless expert I've carefully cultivated, truly possesses the refined air of a scholar, appearing increasingly unfathomable and profound. I sat within the stone chamber, having just finished copying the Lantinji Shu. The brush had yet to leave my hand when the sound of rustling reached me from outside. This noise has persisted for several days now, always manifesting precisely when I am lecturing. Initially, I assumed it was merely the wild rabbits on the island, but today the sound is distinctly clear, as if something is drawing closer. I gripped my brush firmly, maintaining an outward appearance of calm composure. Wukong and Hu Xianfeng were training their physical strength just outside the door. I remained at the table, continuing to transcribe the wise sayings from my past life. To learn and practice it in due time, is this not a joy? To have friends come from afar, is this not a delight? I recited the lines as I wrote them, completely unaware that a white dragon was lurking outside the window. That white dragon's scales were trembling all over, its eyes wide as bronze bells, muttering to itself. For this was the ancient tongue of the dragon race. Learning is the soul of the dragon race. Practicing is the dragon master's claw. He is imparting the supreme technique of the dragon race. The more the dragon pondered, the more it seemed to make sense. The dignified third prince of the West Sea Dragon Palace, Ajo Lai, was currently cowering beneath the window like a common creature. I continued to write. To be unknown to others and remain unperturbed, is this not a man of virtue? Virtuous? Dragon? Aolai's dragon mind erupted with a roar. This was the long-lost virtuous dragon art of the dragon clan. He could no longer restrain himself. With a thunderous crash, he shattered the window and lunged inside. The brush fell from my hand and struck the floor with a dull thud. Everything went dark before my eyes, and I felt a powerful gust of wind lash against my face, followed by a stench so pungent it felt as if I had stepped into a fish market. It is finished. This time, It is a massive monster. Unexpectedly, the system sprite, which had been missing for so long, suddenly manifested in my mind with an exultant tone. Host, this is Aolai, the third prince of the West Sea Dragon Palace. He has come here specifically seeking vengeance against you, because your disciple killed his head vanguard, yet he ended up being completely bewildered by the few words you spoke. On the surface, I calmly leaned down to pick up my brush, but inside, I was cursing up a storm. Aolai slammed onto the ground, his forehead hitting the stone floor with a dull thud. Disciple Aolai begs master to accept him as a student. I was stunned for a moment. What kind of performance is this? He came here to cause trouble, yet he ended up requesting an apprenticeship. Could there be something wrong with this dragon's brain? But since things have come to this, I had no choice but to bite the bullet and continue the act. Since you are already here, come inside and listen to the lecture. I waved my hand, feigning an air of profound, unfathomable mystery. Aolai was so excited that his dragon tail stood straight up. From that day on, there was one more demonic disciple on the island. Wukong and Tiger Vanguard looked at this dragon, their eyes filled with suspicion. Why did you come here? On the second day of the lecture, I spoke a casual sentence. Gentle, kind, respectful, frugal, and humble. These are the 5 virtues from the Analects. Upon hearing this, Aolai's dragon eyes blazed with light. Maester is clearly imparting the dragon tribe's cultivation techniques to me. Gentle is the gentle dragon form, focused on defense. Kind is the kind dragon form, focused on healing. Respectful is the respectful dragon form, focused on control. Frugal is the frugal dragon form, focused on energy conservation. Humble is the humble dragon form, focused on evasion. Right on the spot, he began to practice his dragon form, twisting and turning in the courtyard, though I could see nothing at all. Hearing only the sound of whistling wind, I secretly wondered, what exactly is this dragon doing? Wukong and Tiger Vanguard watched, completely dumbfounded, only to see that, with every movement Aolai made, waves of multicolored, when in the warming dragon form, all the dragon scales tightened to form an impenetrable shield. When in the healing dragon form, a restorative light seeped between the scales. When in the bowing dragon form, the dragon's overwhelming aura was retracted, appearing as modest as a scholar. When in the sword dragon form, the physical body shrank, yet the energy within radiated with even greater intensity. When in the yielding dragon form, he became as swift as lightning, appearing and vanishing in the blink of an eye. The transition between these 5 forms was as smooth and fluid as flowing water and drifting clouds. In a mere 3 short days, Aolai had mastered these 5 forms to the point of pure perfection. He spent his days soaring above the island to show off his prowess. Every time he flew before me, he eagerly awaited my critique. I could see nothing at all, so I could only nod in response. Quite decent. Continue your efforts. Aolai was moved to the point of tears. Master is truly a peerless expert. A divine technique of this caliber is merely quite decent in his eyes. Days drifted by in tranquility, as I spent my time eating, drinking, and telling stories. Each day, my disciples grew stronger through their cultivation, until one day, dark clouds billowed across the sky of the West Sea, as thousands of shrimp soldiers and crab generals formed ranks and surged forward, led by none other than the West Sea Dragon King, Ao Run. Following behind were 9 of his dragon kin, their aggressive, bloodthirsty auras directed toward Fengkun Island. It appeared news of Aolai's disappearance had finally reached the Dragon Palace. The Dragon King had dispatched scouts and discovered that the third prince was residing on Fengkun Island, apprenticed to a blind man, which sent the Dragon King into a fit of rage. My son is the dignified third prince of the Dragon Palace, yet he lowers himself to apprentice under a mere mortal. If word of this spreads, where will the honor of the Dragon Clan be left? And so, he mustered his troops to launch a punitive expedition. Thousands of aquatic warriors surrounded the island, ensuring nothing could enter or leave. Shrimp soldiers, brandishing long spears, while crab generals brandished their massive pincers. The prime minister waved his fan and bellowed, "Aolai, you rebellious son, come out at once and return with your father king." What kind of decorum is this, kneeling before a blind commoner? I was sitting inside the house eating fruit, when I heard the shouting outside, and my hand trembled, nearly causing the fruit to fall. It is finished. It is truly finished. The parents have come knocking at my door, undoubtedly here to drag me away to be stewed into soup. The system spirit, as usual, seized the opportunity to gloat. Do not panic, host. Your disciple is no longer someone to be trifled with. No sooner had the words left his lips than Aolai surged forward, transforming into a white dragon 100 zang in length, coiling majestically above the skies of Fengkun Island. His entire body radiated a brilliant, 5-colored aura. Father, I am now a disciple of my master. I can no longer return to the Dragon Palace. Aolai's voice echoed across the 9 heavens, leaving the Dragon King so infuriated that his beard stood on end. Rebellious son, What nonsense are you spouting? What could that blind man possibly teach you? Today, I will show you just how useless that blind man truly is." With that, he waved his hand, commanding his vast army to press the attack. A flicker of helplessness passed through Ao Li's eyes. "If father is so stubborn, then do not blame me for being discourteous." He channeled the Wen dragon form, his scales layering over one another like impenetrable plate armor. The onslaught of thousands of shrimp soldiers struck him, yet he remained completely unmoved. He then transitioned into the Liang dragon form. Wherever his dragon body passed, a radiant light descended, instantly healing the wounded shrimp soldiers, before shifting into the Gong dragon form. His draconic pressure was restrained to the extreme, yet it became all the more terrifying. The lead general charging forward was instantly frozen in place. Next was the Jillian dragon form. His 100 Zhang dragon body shrank to a mere 10 Zhang, but every single scale contained explosive energy. For his final move, the Rang dragon form, a white light flashed, and he appeared directly before the Dragon King, his speed so great that even his afterimage could not keep pace. "Father, please forgive my offense." Ao Li extended his dragon claw and gave a gentle push. The Dragon King was sent flying backward, but just before he collided with the cliff face, Ao Li used the Liang dragon form to catch him. The movement was as fluid as flowing water. The entire dragon army stood frozen in shock. What kind of demonic art is this? How has the third prince become so terrifyingly powerful? Ao Li hovered in mid-air, looking down at the thousands of aquatic soldiers, and spoke every word with clarity. "By uprightness, one repays injury." The thousands of shrimp, crab, and dragon soldiers were left bewildered. What kind of incantation is that? I don't understand a word of it, yet it feels incredibly profound. The Dragon King struggled to his feet, casting a complex gaze upon his son. "Rebellious son, what technique is this?" Ao Li held his head high, his expression filled with pride. "This is the Confucian Dao, taught by my master. Gentleness, kindness, respect, frugality, and humility. Through these virtues, one transforms into the martial dragon." The Dragon King drew a sharp, chilling breath. The Confucian Dao. What manner of path was this? Why had he never heard of it, despite living for 10,000 years? At this moment, a figure in white robes stepped out with measured ease. It was I, manifesting my presence under the guidance of Hu Xianfeng. Wukong and the eagle stood guard on my left and right. In truth, my legs were trembling, yet I had to maintain a steadfast appearance on the surface. With so many demons present, I was certain my end had come today. However, the words that escaped my lips were, "The Dragon King has traveled from afar to pay a visit. Might you come inside for a cup of tea before you depart?" The Dragon King looked at me, his gaze filled with complexity. This mortal clearly possessed no fluctuations of magical power, so how could he have facilitated the rebirth and transformation of his son? The 9 dragon princes and descendants behind him were also whispering amongst themselves. To be capable of training such an expert as the third prince, this blind man is absolutely not simple. Could he be an ancient master hiding away in the mortal realm, intentionally feigning blindness to wander the world? The Hongchen dragon clan has always preferred to bully the weak and fear the strong. Once they encounter a true master, they kneel faster than anyone else. The Dragon King's expression shifted unpredictably. Seeing him remain silent, I mistook his intent for an imminent attack. I hurriedly added another remark. "If the Dragon King wishes to learn this path of Confucianism, you are welcome to stay and attend the lecture. After all, it is just as easy to guide a flock of sheep as it is to lead one." The Dragon King's entire body trembled. What? This expert is willing to teach even him? With that, he knelt down on the spot. His son, Ao Li, stood there, dumbfounded and stunned. Only moments ago they were locked in a life-or-death struggle, and now he was seeking to become a disciple. "Unfilial son, why haven't you made way for the master yet?" The Dragon King glared at his son before respectfully kowtowing to me 3 times. "Disciple Ao Li begs the master to take me in as a student." I stood there, my face devoid of emotion, while inwardly I was laughing hysterically. I had gained yet another disciple, and a Dragon King at that. With this, all the seafood of the Western Sea now belonged to me. Yet the words I spoke aloud were, "Since we are fated to meet, then let us go together. As it happens, I have not yet finished my tea from yesterday." The Dragon King, overjoyed, turned and waved his hand, ordering the thousands of report everything to the princess consort. "I must cultivate on Fang Kun Island. When will you return to the palace after achieving mastery? From now on, all affairs, great or small, within the West Sea Dragon Palace, are temporarily entrusted to the first prince to manage." Thousands of shrimp soldiers and crab generals looked at one another in confusion. Has the Dragon King also gone mad along with the third prince? Yet, they still obediently retreated. That is how such a great battle reached its dramatic conclusion. I returned to my room. I let out a sigh of relief. The system spirit was rolling on the floor in laughter. "Host, it would be a waste if you didn't use your ability to swindle others for a living. Now, even the dragon race has fallen into your trap. I rolled my eyes at it and told it to get lost. This is called survival through intellect. The system added another remark. Are you certain this wasn't just pure luck? I stared into the pitch-black void before me, falling into deep contemplation. That is true. It was entirely based on luck. But regardless, there is now another disciple on the island, and one who is a great demon of the Dragon King level at that. The coming days will be even more lively. Wukong leads Hu Xianfeng in physical training every day, increasing his push-ups from 10,000 to 100,000. Ao Lai spends his days pondering the 5 forms of the dragon. He insisted that I name each technique, so I casually threw out some names. Gentle Dragon without regret. Bright Dragon saving the world. Dragon Palace paying homage to the saint. Thrifty Dragon returning to the origin. Dragon letting go without a trace. Ao Lai experienced an immediate epiphany, and the power of those 5 moves doubled instantly. The Dragon King practices sparring with his son every day, reciting the Analects while trading blows. Though he still stutters and stumbles, his progress is swift. The most interesting part is the evening class. I told the story of the carp leaping over the dragon gate. Ao Lai listened, tears streaming down his face. Master, you are teaching me about filial piety. In the future, I must treat my father better. The Dragon King, standing nearby, was moved as well. My son, you have finally learned to be sensible. The father and son embraced, sobbing uncontrollably, while I stood to the side, looking utterly bewildered. This is a scene straight out of the 24 filial exemplars. How exactly is the mind of you dragon race members wired? But regardless, their paternal bond continued to grow stronger. Wukong stood by, scratching his head. Why are these dragons so prone to tears? Hu Xianfeng stood nearby and added a remark. Brother Monkey, you do not understand. This is what we call being descendants of the dragon and the immortals. Wukong looked even more confused. What is that supposed to mean? Hu Xianfeng could not explain it either. Generally speaking, it just sounds very formidable. Every day, I live within this bizarre atmosphere. On the surface, I am an enlightened expert living beyond the world. But in reality, I am merely a blind man with nothing to do, surviving day by day solely by bluffing my way through. The sea breeze of Fangkun Island carries a salty scent. As the days pass, I reside in this idle wind, weaving one lie after another. Yet those very lies are manifesting one legend after another. The protagonists of those legends are currently outside, sweating profusely, doing push-ups, until they begin to doubt the very purpose of their existence, while I simply sit inside, occasionally reciting a few lines from the Analects to earn the worship of an entire pack of demons. This deal is far too lucrative. Although the risks are high, one must take gambles to reap the rewards. The dragon race falling into my trap is only the beginning. There are many more great demons waiting for me to handle. At this moment, I was lying on the bed, closing my eyes to rest, when the spirit system spoke up leisurely. Host, are you not afraid of being exposed? I rolled my eyes and glared at it. What is there to fear? When the carriage reaches the mountain, there will surely be a road, and this road is paved with my deceits. No sooner had I finished speaking than the cheers of Ao Lai drifted in from outside. Master, I have achieved a breakthrough to the true immortal realm. I jolted upright in shock. What? It has only been a few days, and he has already broken through? The system replied languidly. The Dao you teach truly possesses genuine merit. Coupled with the foundation of the dragon race, it would be strange if you did not achieve a breakthrough. I took a deep breath, knowing this situation was becoming increasingly troublesome. The stronger the disciple, the more likely they are to attract powerful figures, yet I must maintain a calm exterior. Quite good. Continue your efforts. Strive to reach the heaven immortal realm as soon as possible. Outside, Ao Lai howled in uncontrollable excitement. Master, you treat me too well. Lying inside the house, I felt like crying without shedding a single tear. When will this life ever come to an end? But having already boarded this pirate ship, I have no choice but to follow through until the end. With the number of demons on the island increasing, my meals have become increasingly lavish. Yesterday, I feasted on lobsters delivered via express transport from the West Sea. Today, I heard they are even planning to catch crabs in the North Sea. These days can truly be considered comfortable. I turned over and went back to sleep. Outside the window, the sea breeze whistled. My disciples were toiling away in their cultivation. Meanwhile, a master like me was gnawing on a chicken leg in the dim light. Such was the daily routine on Fangkun Island. The story of a mortal and his band of demons had only just begun, and the West Sea Dragon King joining the fold was merely the opening act for this comedic play. I do not know how many great demons are waiting in the shadows, but I know that as long as I can bluff my way through, I will survive. The father and son of the Dragon Clan were spun around like tops on the island every day. Ao Lai recited mantras while dancing in his dragon form. The Dragon King studied while writing down his profound reflections. Wukong watched these two dragons and scratched his head in confusion. The monkey could not understand why the Dragon Clan was studying such things. Hu Xianfeng, standing nearby, calmly remarked, "Perhaps this is what it means to be a person of culture." Every day, I enjoyed seafood transported from the West Sea, living more luxuriously than an emperor. But those days of leisure would not last for long. That day, I was taking an afternoon nap in my house. Suddenly, a thunderous explosion erupted outside, shaking the very foundations of the stone house. I jolted up. Is this an earthquake? Or a tsunami? The system spirit's voice echoed, sounding utterly languid. Host, do not panic. Some demons have come looking for trouble. Must you always roll your eyes at such things? Last time it was the Dragon Clan. Who could it be this time? The system spirit offered no reply, emitting only a faint, mischievous chuckle. I could not be bothered to press the matter. Besides, even if I asked, I would see nothing. Under the guidance of Hu Xianfeng, I stepped out of the stone house, standing tall to assume the posture of a supreme expert as thunderous explosions echoed from afar. That was Wukong clashing with something. The thundering sounds of combat shook the very earth beneath us. Intermingled with the noise were deep, resonant bellows. Hearing those roars, I wondered to myself, where did this wild ox come from, and why would it dare provoke that monkey? Beside me, Hu Xianfeng stomped his feet in pure excitement. Master, Brother Monkey is truly formidable. He is matching that ox demon blow for blow, using nothing but his physical body. I nodded slowly. Indeed, the physical body is the foundation of all things. In truth, I was thinking that as long as they did not turn their aggression toward us, it did not matter who emerged victorious. Just as I was lost in thought, the bellowing drew closer, then abruptly ceased following a deafening explosion. Hu Xianfeng claimed that the ox demon had retreated. I heaved a sigh of relief and headed back inside to rest. By dusk, Wukong had returned, and I asked him casually, was there a thunderstorm today? Wukong stood stunned, scratching his head. Master, that was no thunderstorm. It was an ox demon. My ears perked up. An ox demon? My heart skipped a beat, for that was a formidable great demon. Yet, outwardly, I maintained a look of complete composure. A little sparring is good for him. Wukong chuckled. Master is absolutely right. Late that night, as I lay in bed, the system spirit spoke leisurely. Host, do you know why that ox demon chose to flee? I turned over, thinking that whether it chose to flee or not was irrelevant, so long as it did not come to disturb my peace. The system spirit simply smiled and said nothing more. Early the next morning, Hu Xianfeng rushed in, breathless. Master, there is an ox outside. It is kneeling at our door, and it has brought 2 massive watermelons. What kind of ox? It is the very same ox demon from yesterday. I hurriedly donned my robes and stepped outside. Even though I could see nothing, my aura remained imposing and sufficient. As I reached the entrance, I could indeed hear heavy, ragged breathing, and the pungent, unmistakable scent of a beast assaulted my senses. Upon seeing me emerge, the ox immediately began to kowtow, its forehead striking the ground with a rhythmic, heavy thud. I remained motionless, though internally I was spiraling into panic. What kind of farce was this? Yet the words that escaped my lips were, "Since you have arrived, rise." The ox demon let out an emotional roar. Master, have you finally accepted me? I nodded. On the surface, I remained as calm as a placid lake. Yet in truth, I had not even gathered my wits to discern who he really was. But no matter his origins, he was my disciple now. From that day forth, there was one more ox on the island. Following the order of entry, Wukong was the eldest senior brother, and Hu Xianfeng was the second. Ao Lai was the third senior brother, and this ox became the fourth junior brother. Hu Xianfeng was trembling so violently his limbs felt weak. A hulking ox demon of such immense stature was actually calling him second senior brother. Beside him, Ao Li suppressed a laugh and called out, "Fourth junior brother." The ox demon responded with complete obedience. Third senior brother. Ao Li was so startled he began waving his hands frantically. No. Please, dispense with such formalities. The ox demon, wearing an expression of pure, unadulterated sincerity, saw no issue with the exchange at all. As I stood nearby listening to their conversation, I could not help but wonder about the true identity of this ox demon. Why was even Ao Lai afraid of him? But I was too idle to ponder it further. He was my disciple now, and I would learn the truth in time. In the days that followed, I began my lectures. That day, I taught the principle of think thrice before acting, intending to instruct them on the importance of prudence and caution. Unexpectedly, the ox demon's eyes lit up upon hearing this, interpreting it as, before fighting, one must think 3 times. Consequently, before every strike, he would freeze for 3 full seconds, much to the exasperation of Wukong, who began scratching his head and pacing in agitation. Fourth junior brother, just attack already. The ox demon replied with a grave expression. I am currently on my 3rd thought. The first thought is to consider whether to strike, the second is to consider how to strike, and the third is to consider which path to take when fleeing after the strike. Wukong rolled his eyes. By the time you finish your 3 thoughts, the sun will have set. I would have already finished the battle long ago. The ox demon pouted. claiming he was merely following Master's teachings. Hearing that, I nearly burst into laughter, though I maintained a composed facade. A commendable insight. Another day, I lectured on the proverb, "A gentleman does not stand under a crumbling wall." Upon hearing this, the ox demon packed his belongings that very night, abandoning his cave to relocate to an underground fortress. This fortress was excavated to a depth of 3 zang, fortified with countless mechanisms and traps, with a warning sign posted at the entrance forbidding entry. Wukong went to inspect the area and returned to report to me. "Master, the 4th junior brother has moved his residence underground." Suppressing a laugh, I replied, "Indeed, he is truly prudent." The turning point came when I carelessly remarked, "Success favors those who are prepared," intended to convey that one must always be ready before undertaking any task. Consequently, the ox demon learned how to draft a comprehensive combat risk assessment report. Before every engagement, he would unfurl a bamboo scroll covered in dense script, which Wukong secretly swiped and read aloud to me. It detailed the opponent's name, strength, background, and potential connections or backers. If we win, who will we offend? If we are defeated, how shall we escape? If escape is impossible, is there a substitute doll to take the blow? It was an entirely complete risk management system. After Wukong finished reading, I was left speechless. Is this supposed to be a battle, or are they filing a report? Yet the words that left my lips were, an innovative approach indeed. That day, a demon finally arrived to provoke us, a lion spirit, who knew nothing of the vastness of the world, intent on seizing territory on Mount Fangkun. The ox demon took out a compass to calculate the auspicious hour, performed a series of mental calculations, and put away his scroll with a solemn expression. "Today is not an auspicious day to strike. Let us battle tomorrow." The lion spirit stood dazed, unable to comprehend the meaning. The ox demon spoke gravely. "According to my risk assessment, taking action today will bring more misfortune than luck. Return now, and come back tomorrow." The lion spirit was so enraged that he leapt into the air. "I have already arrived, and you tell me to turn back? Come back tomorrow." The lion spirit let out a roar and charged, but before he could close the distance, Wukong struck him with a single fist, obliterating him instantly. The ox demon stomped his feet in distress. "Senior bro, but what if he has powerful backers? What if behind him stands the 9-spirit primal sage? And behind the 9-spirit primal sage stands the great heavenly worthy of Taiyi? What if the great heavenly worthy of Taiyi were to descend and punish him?" Wukong simply rolled his eyes at the thought. The bull demon appeared sorrowful, but this is what he considers true prudence. I sat at home, slapping my thigh in laughter. This bull demon is truly fascinating. The system was also laughing uncontrollably. "Host, do you even know who this bull demon is?" I rolled my eyes and replied, "It doesn't matter who he is my disciple now." The system giggled. "He is none other than the great bull demon king himself." I stood frozen in place. "What? The leader of the 7 great sages?" The system nodded in confirmation. "That is correct. That is why when you called him a bull demon earlier, he was not offended. In fact, he was quite pleased." I drew in a sharp, cold breath. "The great bull demon king, my 4th disciple, actually called me master." The system gloated. "Indeed, and he has been completely brainwashed by you. Now his mind is filled only with the concept of prudence." I reflected on the risk assessment report from earlier. Thinking of that bunker dug 300 zang deep, I suddenly felt as if this world had become entirely surreal. The heaven-equaling great sage, the bull demon king, one of the most formidable figures in the demon realm, has now joined the sect of prudence. He must write a report before engaging in any fight. He must contemplate his actions a 3rd time, and then a 3rd time again. He dug his residence all the way to the core of the earth. If word of this spread, the 7 great sages would have no face left to show. But come to think of it, who cares? He is my disciple now. The more cautious he is, the better it is for me, as I no longer have to worry about being implicated. And so, I decided to increase the dosage, teaching him even more idioms, so he could contemplate them to his heart's content. The following days grew even more lively. The bull demon king spent his days writing risk assessment reports with more diligence than a scholar of the Imperial Academy. Ao Lai spent his days practicing the 5 forms of the Confucian dragon, reciting principles of gentleness and integrity as he trained, while the Dragon King practiced sparring with his son daily. The father and son duo debated the Analects while trading blows. Wukong's daily push-ups had increased to 2 million, and his physical body had grown so powerful that he could shoulder an entire mountain. He was now responsible for taking the hits, acting as a sparring partner, to ensure his brothers progressed at lightning speed. Their strength soared without limit. As for me, I passed my days eating, telling stories, and living in complete ease and freedom. It was not until that evening that the bull demon king suddenly came knocking at my door. "Master, I have a matter upon which I seek your guidance." "Master, I have something I wish to ask you. I was awakened from my slumber. Suppressing my irritation, I told him to enter. The Bull Demon King knelt respectfully on the ground, holding a bamboo scroll aloft with both hands. Master, please examine this risk assessment report for me. Is there anything that requires amendment? I nearly spat out a mouthful of blood. You disturbed my rest in the middle of the night just for this. Yet I had to maintain a composed demeanor. Read it aloud and let me hear. The Bull Demon King cleared his throat and began to read. Provisional plan for tomorrow's sparring match with Senior Brother Wukong. Risk assessment as follows. First, Senior Brother Wukong's true strength is unfathomably deep. Second, Senior Brother Wukong's strikes follow no discernible pattern. Third, Senior Brother Wukong often fights without regard for convention. In conclusion, the risk level is extremely high. I propose canceling the match. Shift focus to observation and study instead. I was speechless after hearing this. Is this a risk assessment? Or is this an application for withdrawal? Yet, the words that left my lips were, well written. Continue to strive. The Bull Demon King was overjoyed, believing that I had recognized his insight and that he must exert himself further. Having said that, he departed in high spirits. I lay back down on my bed and let out a sigh of relief. This bull-headed fool must truly have something wrong with him. The system spirit laughed uncontrollably. Host, you have truly misguided the child. What would you know of this? This is what is called teaching according to one's aptitude. What the Bull Demon King requires is steadiness. The steadier, the better. The more stable he is, the fewer disasters will occur. Otherwise, with that temperament of his, the number of people he would offend would surely wrap around the West Sea 3 times over. The system fell silent for a moment, finding the logic sound. I waited to drift back into sleep. Let it be. Regardless, the island is quite lively now, with both the Dragon Tribe and the Bull Tribe having arrived. Who will be the next to appear? An eagle? A lion? Or perhaps a hydra? It matters not. If one comes, I shall deceive one, and if a pair arrives, I shall deceive them both. After all, one does not fear the itch when covered in bites, nor does one fear sorrow when burdened with debt. My days on Fangkun Island were filled with new surprises and fresh amusements at every turn. And I, your blind master, surrounded by this gathering of demons, continued to play the role of the peerless expert, continuing to hoodwink my disciples. After all, as long as I could maintain the ruse, I could continue to survive. Such is the Dako of my deception. It began with tricking the monkey, extending to the dragon race, and even the bull race. Who the next target might be I know not, but I am certain there will be someone to follow. For the journey to the west continues, and the Buddhist sect remains watchful. Those great demons will come knocking at my door sooner or later, and when that time arrives, we shall see if my great art of deception still holds its efficacy. The sea breeze of Fangkun Island remained as salty as ever. I lay within my stone dwelling, listening to the movements of my disciples outside. A faint smile graced my lips. These foolish demons are truly easy to manipulate. As the days drifted by, Wukong performed push-ups daily, working himself into a state of ecstatic exhaustion. Hu Shanfeng was beaten daily, his strength soaring. Ao Li recited the Analects until it was second nature, his dragon scales shimmering with a brilliant luster. The Bull Demon King filled stacks of risk assessment reports. The fortress was excavated deep into the earth's core, for it was said to be the safest sanctuary. Day by day, I would dine and recount tales of my past life. My disciples listened with rapt fascination, their cultivation progressing at a startling pace. In the blink of an eye, 5 years had passed. Today, as I idled within my residence, a piercing alarm suddenly resonated within my mind. System alert. Numerous powerful entities are focusing their attention on the host. To prevent exposure, partial functions will be activated prematurely. I bolted upright, startled. What is the meaning of this? Was I not told the system would only activate after 500 years? Only 5 years have passed, yet it activates ahead of schedule. The voice of the system spirit rang out, uncharacteristically grave in tone. Host, the disturbances caused by your deceptions over these drawing the attention of far too many powerful experts. If you do not activate it immediately, you may well be captured for study and dissection. In that case, I offer you my gratitude. The system continues to announce the activated functions as follows. Risk warnings, scandal points, and temporary restoration of eyesight. Methods to acquire scandal points include causing others to misunderstand, making high-level experts doubt themselves, or tricking disciples into cultivating bizarre techniques. The scandal shop allows one to exchange eyesight for 5 minutes, a mercenary system for 3 minutes, or an eternal manual on the art of grandiloquent boasting. My eyes lit up upon hearing this. Although I could not yet see, my heart swelled with immense joy. With this golden finger at my disposal, I checked my balance of scandal points. The system reminded me that my current balance is 100,000 points, derived from the Dragon Clan falling into my trap, the Bull Demon King being ensnared, and various accumulations from my grotesque insights. I took a deep breath and exchanged points for a glimpse of temporary vision to see how it would fare. 10,000 scandal points deducted. Suddenly, A brilliant light illuminated my vision. For 5 years, wandering in darkness, I have seen absolutely nothing. Now, finally able to see again, I was so moved I nearly wept, and I quickly scanned my surroundings. The room was modest, containing only a stone table and chairs, with the aphorisms I had transcribed hanging upon the walls. The handwriting was unrefined, yet it could be considered orderly. I pushed the door open and stepped outside. The glaring sunlight forced me to squint for a long moment, after which I beheld the most shocking sight of my life. In the courtyard, a golden-furred monkey lay prone on the ground, performing push-ups. His muscles rippled like raw fibers, and a faint, shimmering phantom manifestation loomed behind him. Each time he descended, the ground trembled 3 times. That was undoubtedly Wukong, the great sage equal to heaven, Sun Wukong. Beside him sat a colossal tiger. It sat in a slothful, imposing posture, yet its gaze was remarkably pure, like a giant cat staring at Wukong while counting. 101. 102. This was Tiger Vanguard, my second disciple. In the sky, a white dragon writhed through the clouds. Its scales sparkled under the sun, and its mouth muttered, gentle, kind, respectful, frugal, yielding, as its dragon body contorted into strange postures. This was Ao Li, the third prince of the West Sea Dragon Palace. Most absurd of all, in the corner of the courtyard stood a giant black ox, larger than the house itself, its entire body glistening with a dark, polished sheen. It crouched on the ground, holding a gargantuan calligraphy brush between its front hooves, painstakingly writing upon a scroll of bamboo slips. I rubbed my eyes and looked again. Truly, there was no mistake. It was a cow practicing calligraphy. Upon the scroll were lines of cramped, dense text, titled, Risk Assessment Report for Negotiations with the Dragon King of the East Sea, and I found myself frozen in disbelief. What in the world is this? Is this truly the great Bull Demon King? The great sage equaling heaven, the Bull Demon King, is writing a report. Even though I had known of this for a long time, seeing it with my own eyes was still profoundly shocking. The system spirit rolled on the floor in fits of laughter. Host, you are not mistaken. That is indeed your 4th disciple. The demons of the spirit realm now call him the steadfast bull. I took a deep breath, struggling to compose my state of mind. Just as I was about to step forward for a closer look, a shrill cry suddenly pierced the sky. I looked up to see a streak of golden light hurtling toward us from the horizon. Its speed was terrifying. In the blink of an eye, it was directly above us. It was a gargantuan, golden-winged great rock. Its massive wingspan blotted out the very heavens. Its eyes, like twin lanterns, stared coldly down at us. Wukong immediately leapt into the air, assuming a combat stance. Ao Li ceased his serpentine movements, circling in vigilance. The Bull Demon King cast his calligraphy brush aside. He drew a compass from his robes and began calculating the auspicious timing. Only Hu Xianfeng remained dazed. He sat there, unable to react before the great rock dove straight down. It moved with such blinding speed that it was impossible to track. Only a dark shadow was seen flickering past. Hu Xianfeng had vanished. I watched in stunned silence as the great rock snatched up Hu Xianfeng and soared into the azure sky. Wukong roared, riding the clouds in pursuit, while Ao Li transformed into a streak of white light to follow close behind. The Bull Demon King tucked away his compass and stomped his foot, muttering that today was truly not a day for conflict. Yet he was forced to grit his teeth and take flight. But the speed of the great rock was far too great. In a heartbeat, it had left Wukong's group far behind. It circled a few times in the air, emitting a triumphant cry, before diving down and slamming Hu Xianfeng into the ground. Hu Xianfeng had been shaken to his very core, collapsing, and unable to rise for a long while. The great rock landed not far away, transforming into a man dressed in golden robes. His gaze swept across the group before finally resting upon me. Which one of you is the leader? Step forward and accept your death. The voice was piercing and cold, thick, with unbridled disdain. Wukong stood firmly before me. Golden light erupted from his entire body as the Bull Demon King pulled out a deck of cards, flipping through them with frantic speed. Ao Li soared through the heavens, his dragon might flooding the skies. I stood my ground, my expression as unshakable as a monolith, though my heart was in a state of utter turmoil. This massive bird's origins were extraordinary, and its speed was such that even Wukong could not keep pace. The system spirit issued an emergency notification. Host, this is the golden-winged Great Peng, the uncle of the Buddha himself. Its speed is peerless throughout the 3 realms. It seems the Buddha's command has arrived to investigate the anomalies within the Journey to the West plan. My scalp tingled with impending dread. If it is the Buddha's uncle, does that not make him the ancestor of all demons? We have struck a jagged rock today, but there is no turning back. I have no choice but to stake everything on one desperate gambit. I silently opened the system store. With 90,000 points remaining, I exchanged for a 3-minute mercenary service, costing 50,000 points. with the temporary vision buff expiring in 1 minute. I quickly performed another exchange, deducting an additional 10,000 points for the vision buff. Now, only 30,000 points remained. Seeing my silence, the Great Peng mistook it for cowardice and stepped forward with a sneer. I drew a deep breath and slowly stepped out from the protection of Wukong. Even though my legs trembled, my stride remained steady. I raised a hand toward the Great Peng. You may possess unmatched speed, but do you understand that the Great Dago is simple? A true powerhouse can determine the fate of the heavens and earth with a single strike. My voice was indifferent, yet it carried an irresistible pressure. The Great Peng paused for a second before laughing boisterously. A single strike? If you can even touch a single strand of my feathers, consider yourself the victor. Without further words, I recited a command in my heart, activating the 3-minute mercenary system. The system deducted 50,000 points, and the 3-minute countdown began. Instantly, a surge of terrifying power flooded my body, and my entire being radiated a brilliant golden light. The radiance grew increasingly blinding, obscuring the Great Peng's vision. Wukong and his companions were struck dumb with astonishment. Is Master about to make his move? For 5 years, I had never once moved against an enemy. I slowly pressed my palms together as the techniques I had once taught Wukong long ago surfaced in my mind. My domain expanded, but this time it was not a reckless shout, but the supreme version, automatically calibrated by the system. Between my palms, a domain of energy condensed with frantic intensity, growing larger and bright. The surrounding air trembled violently. The golden eagle's expression shifted. It attempted to flap its wings and take flight, but its body felt as if it had been nailed to the spot, unable to move a single inch. My domain expanded to its absolute limit. I thrust both palms forward. In the next instant, the entire space began to oscillate, and countless colossal pillars of energy manifested in the void. From all directions, they locked onto a single target, thundering down to strike the golden eagle directly. Wherever they passed, space collapsed. Even solid boulders were pulverized into nothingness. The golden eagle exerted every ounce of its strength to evade, its speed so great that it left behind a myriad of afterimages, yet those pillars of light seemed to possess eyes, swerving sharply mid-air to pursue it relentlessly. With a deafening explosion, the light grazed the eagle's wing, causing several golden feathers to drift downward, only to be incinerated into ash by the terrifying temperature. The shockwave sent the golden eagle hurtling away, crashing through 3 mountain peaks before it finally came to a halt. 3 minutes elapsed. The golden radiance surrounding me vanished, and a heavy wave of exhaustion crashed down upon me. I nearly collapsed to the ground, yet I knew I could not reveal any sign of weakness. I forced myself upright, crossing my arms as I gazed ahead, my face deathly pale, though my expression remained detached. Wukong and the others cheered with excitement. Master is truly peerless. You blew that eagle away with a single strike. The golden eagle scrambled out from the rubble, clutching its wounded wing. Its gaze shifted from fury to terror, and finally, to fervent obsession. What manner of divine technique is this? He actually managed to suppress my speed. In all the 3 realms, no one has ever been able to keep pace with me, except for this mysterious master. The eagle walked forward step by step, then knelt heavily before me, its forehead striking the ground with a dull thud. I implore you, Master, please accept me as your disciple. I wish to learn this technique. I stood there, looking down at him, breathing a sigh of relief inwardly. At last, the deception had succeeded. Externally, however, I remained composed. Very well. Since destiny has brought us together, come inside and listen to my teachings. The golden eagle trembled with emotion. Master, is that truly permitted? I nodded and turned to walk into the cottage. Every step felt as if my legs were about to shatter. Yet I maintained the demeanor of an untouchable master. Entering the stone hut and closing the door behind me, I finally collapsed onto the floor, gasping for breath. The system spirit laughed until it choked. Host, that performance of yours was truly remarkable. The 50,000 villain points spent were not wasted at all. I rolled my eyes at it. That was far too close to being exposed. I shall not take such risks next time. From outside, the excited cheers of Dabang echoed into the room. Master's divine technique. I shall practice it immediately. I peeked through the crack in the door. Dabang stood in the middle of the courtyard, clasping his hands together and mimicking my stance before shouting loudly. He unleashed his domain, yet nothing happened. He stared blankly for a moment, and tried again, but there was still no reaction. On the 3rd attempt, he poured every ounce of his strength into it. A faint light finally flickered between his palms, followed by a loud boom. Dabang's face was charred black as coal, and his hair stood on end. Wukong covered his face, unable to bear the sight. Enol Li turned his head away, feigning interest in the scenery. Yao Mo Wang pulled out a wooden tablet and began to record. The new junior brother's first attempt at cultivation failed. I recommend strengthening safety training. Hu Xianfeng had just managed to crawl up, but seeing this scene he collapsed back down. I leaned against the door, shaking with laughter. This fellow Dabang is truly not the sharpest tool in the shed. The system spirit spoke leisurely. Host, now you have a monkey, a tiger, a dragon, a bull, and a rock. You could open a zoological garden. Now, get lost. However, truth be told, though Dabang is a bit foolish, his raw power is terrifying. In the future, there will be no need to fear anyone in battle. The days that followed were even more lively. Dabang practiced his domain deployment daily, blowing himself up no fewer than 3 times. He managed to level several hills on the island. Wukong finally could not stand it any longer. Fifth junior brother, this method of training is simply not right. Dabang wore a grievance-filled expression. But this is what Master taught me. Wukong scratched his head. Master's cultivation realm has already reached the pinnacle. You are nowhere near that level yet. Dabang refused to concede and continued to practice, resulting in another massive explosion. This time, he sent himself hurtling straight into the sea. The Demon King pulled out his wooden tablet once more. He recorded. Today, the fifth junior brother failed at practicing the divine technique. Location of impact: the sea. Rescue operations recommended. Alio Li shook his head in resignation. He transformed into a white dragon, dove into the water, and retrieved Dabang back to the shore. Dabang, while coughing up seawater, did not forget to ask, "Third senior brother, was that good?" Ao Lai rolled his eyes. "You certainly blasted yourself far enough." Remaining inside, I listened to the commotion outside. These foolish demons truly become more simple-minded with each passing day. The eagle sat in the front row, his eyes gleaming as he stared at me. "Master, how does one cultivate such a magnificent domain?" "When you refine your physical body to its ultimate limit, you will naturally grasp it." "And to what extent must one refine the physical body?" I pointed toward the mountain outside. "When you can shatter that mountain with your own body, then return to ask." Without a word, the eagle soared out. With a thunderous crash, he slammed into the mountain. The mountain remained unscathed. He, however, saw stars and clutched his face in pain. Our fifth junior brother is truly too honest. The Demon King Yao pulled out a wooden tablet to record the event. Today, fifth junior brother attempted to ram the mountain peak. Assessing the hardness of his skull, Ali Li sighed. This junior brother is truly beyond salvation. I held my teacup, laughing until my whole body trembled. This eagle is truly far too simple-minded. Though he is somewhat foolish, he is remarkably obedient. He will undoubtedly prove useful in the future. The spirit system spoke up leisurely. "Host, do you remember whose uncle the eagle is?" I was stunned for a moment. Then it suddenly dawned on me. "That is right. He is the uncle of Tathagata." My hand trembled, and the teacup nearly slipped. "The uncle of Tathagata has become my disciple. Does that not mean Tathagata must address me as?" "Theoretically, that is the case." I drew in a cold breath. This game has grown quite large. But upon further reflection, what is there to fear? Regardless, the deception is already done. Having one more Tathagata as an acquaintance is of no consequence. I set my teacup down and continued to watch as all my disciples went off to cultivate. I lay on my bed, tossing and turning, unable to find rest. The system's words echoed incessantly in my mind. Many great powers are now focusing their attention on the host. It appears the Buddhist sect has set its sights on this place. Moving forward, those who come knocking will likely no longer be demons, but true immortals. When that time comes, I do not know. But I know that I must continue to grow stronger. I have 30,000 discipleship points remaining. I must find a way to earn more, and I must drive my disciples to comprehend even more bizarre cultivation techniques. Only by making them stronger can I ensure my own safety. Early the next morning, Dabang stood in the center of the training courtyard. This time, he was not practicing the deployment of a domain. Instead, he followed my instructions from the previous night, his head striking the target with a thunderous impact that shook the heavens and the earth. He must mobilize the strength of his entire body. He cannot rely solely on his head. Dabang nodded vigorously and continued his assault, this time using his shoulder to batter the mountain. A massive boulder cracked and fell from the cliffside. Dabang cheered with excitement. "Senior brother, I have succeeded." Wukong cast him a sidelong glance. "This is merely the beginning. Continue." Niu Mo Wang stood to the side, taking notes. Today, the fifth junior brother shattered a section of the mountain. His physical constitution has increased by 5%. At this rate, he should be able to shatter the entire mountain within a month. Ao Lai hovered in the air, occasionally dropping a word of encouragement. "Fifth junior brother, keep going. You are the strongest among us." Hu Xianfeng crouched in the corner, watching his senior brothers training with such intensity, muttering to himself. Perhaps I should be practicing something as well? I stepped out of the stone house, the sunlight warming my skin. It was incredibly pleasant. Although I cannot see, I can sense that my disciples are all giving their utmost. For the sake of their blind master, they are truly risking their lives to cultivate. A sense of emotion stirred within my heart. These foolish demons may have been tricked into following me, but they sincerely regard me as their master. Therefore, this master must also treat them with sincerity. Even if I possess no divine powers, at the very least, I can bring them joy and help them become stronger. That is enough. I stood there, listening to the echoes of the mountain battering in the distance, and a faint smile touched my lips. The days ahead on Feng Kun Island are long. It is truly a blessing to have these foolish disciples by my side. The system spirit spoke up calmly. Host, you have changed. I was taken aback. Changed? Previously, I only thought of preserving my own life. Now, I have actually started considering the well-being of my disciples. I remained silent for a long moment, thinking to myself that perhaps, over time, a genuine bond has formed. Though it began as a ruse, true affection inevitably grows with the passing of time. The system spirit remained silent. From afar, the miserable squawks of the great Peng echoed through the air. Master, I have missed my mark again. I shook my head with a bitter smile. What a fool. The sea breeze of Feng Kun Island still carried the scent of salt. As the days flowed by, my disciples grew stronger with each passing day. I, their blind master, continued to play the part of an exalted expert, continuing to deceive my own disciples. Yet this time it was different, for I knew they were not merely my talismans of protection, but my family. Even if I could hardly believe these words myself, in my heart, I knew it to be the truth. Let it be. Regardless, I shall continue the deception and live on until 500 years have passed. I will worry about the day the system truly activates when it arrives. However, after making that vow, the days continued to flash by in an instant. The 500-year mark arrived in the blink of an eye. 5 centuries of time are nothing to a demon. But for a transmigrator such as myself, it was an eternity that turned my hair gray. Fortunately, with these foolish disciples by my side, every day was filled with vitality. Wukong has practiced push-ups for 500 years. His physical body has grown so formidable that it defies description, where a casual punch is enough to shatter a celestial body. The Fox Immortal has endured beatings for 500 years. His hide is so thick he is rightfully named the greatest punching bag of the 3 realms. Ao Lai has recited the Analects for 500 years. The literary aura of the Dragon Clan has forged him into a refined Confucian dragon scholar. The Bull Demon King has been writing reports for 500 years. He now possesses documentation on every demon across the 3 realms. The Great Peng has self-detonated while cultivating for 500 years, and at last, he has perfected the mastery of his deployed domain, though minor accidents still occur from time to time. As for me, this blind master has relied on a partially activated system function for the last 500 years to forcefully maintain the image of an exalted expert, but today, everything has changed. As I sat in the courtyard basking in the morning sun, a divine chime I had not heard in ages suddenly echoed in my mind. The 500-year term has expired. The system is now officially activated. Congratulations to the host for completing the beginner protection phase. The system functions have finally been unlocked. I stood there, stunned. The 500-year mark had truly arrived. The voice of the system spirit resonated, filled with a sense of melancholy. Host, congratulations on surviving these 500 years, it said, its tone suggesting I had barely escaped death. The system chuckled. That is essentially the truth. Consider how many great demons you have deceived, and how many powerful factions you have offended over these 5 centuries. To have survived until now is truly a miracle, I replied, choosing to ignore its remark. I began to review the features of the completed version. The system notified. The host has acquired the following abilities. First, eternal true vision. Second, combat power, synchronized with your current strongest disciple. Third, unrestricted travel across the 3 realms. Fourth, the ability to bestow powers upon others. Fifth, the ability to perceive the information of any individual. My eyes ignited with fervor. This was no small gain. After a century of waiting, the day of harvest has finally arrived. Just as I was lost in thought, a commotion erupted outside. My 5 disciples rushed in simultaneously, and Wukong excitedly informed me that today was a momentous occasion. I immediately asked, what is so momentous? Hu Xianfeng spoke up before the others. Master, today marks exactly 500 years since the founding of Feng Kun Mountain. Haidu Li nodded, stating that they were preparing to host a grand ceremony in my honor. The Bull Demon King pulled out a scroll and began reading the commemorative ceremony proposal. Phase 1. The opening address. Phase 2. Offering of gifts. Phase 3, the Great Rock interrupted. Enough, master. We have prepared many gifts for you. My heart warmed. These foolish disciples still remembered this day. Just as I was about to speak, the system spirit suddenly sounded. Host. A multitude of powerful auras have been detected approaching Feng Kun Mountain. Among them is one of immense strength. It is likely the Tathagata. I furrowed my brow. The Buddhist sect could no longer restrain themselves. Before I could even open my mouth, the sky erupted with the roar of dragons and the cries of phoenixes. The Tathagata Buddha, accompanied by the Bodhisattvas, descended from Mount Ling, Manjushri, Samantabhadra, Guanyin, 3,000 bhikkhus, a formation even more grand than the one from 500 years ago. Even at Spirit Mountain, Wukong gripped his Ruyi Jinggubang tightly, positioning himself before me. Hu Xianfeng hid behind me, peering out cautiously, while Aoli transformed into his true dragon form, circling the skies above. The Bull Demon King withdrew a file, flipping through it frantically to cross-reference data. The Great Peng soared into the heavens, blocking Tathagata's path, and demanding to know if he had come to disrupt our gathering. Tathagata explained in haste. You misunderstand. I have come to invite the Master to Spirit Mountain to discourse on the Tao. The Great Peng stood stunned, pressing him on the nature of this discourse. Tathagata nodded, stating that 500 years ago, my teachings at Spirit Mountain had echoed throughout the three realms, and now, after 5 centuries, he wished to invite me to deliver those teachings once more. The Bodhisattvas rose in unison to voice their support, their attitudes displaying the utmost reverence. I stood there, observing Tathagata, questioning within myself whether this was sincere or merely another trial. The system spirit spoke up. Rest assured, host. Tathagata has been completely won over by your mastery. For the past 500 years, he has continued to study your words, finding them more profound and unfathomable with every passing day. In that case, let us proceed. It is a fine opportunity to test the capabilities of the complete version of the system. Thus, I set out once more for Spirit Mountain. This journey was not a pilgrimage for scriptures, but a dignified procession to preach the Daso. My 5 disciples surrounded me, escorting me as we rode the clouds and harnessed the winds. Before long, we arrived at the foot of Spirit Mountain. At the gates of Lei-Yin Temple, Tathagata personally emerged to welcome us, respectfully inviting me to enter the Mahavira Hall. The hall was already filled with bodhisattvas, arhats, and various deities from across the 3 realms. The Jade Emperor had dispatched Taibai Jingxing, the Old Lord had sent Jin Zhao and Yin Zhao, and even the 10 kings of hell from the underworld were present. I stood in the center of the hall, casting a glance around. Though I felt a flicker of nervousness, my outward demeanor remained as unshakable as Mount Tai, as I folded my arms and waited for Tathagata to speak. 500 years ago, Master, you taught that the highest good is like water, and our contemplation of those words has yielded infinite benefits. We now beg you to open your golden lips once more. We are ready to listen with purified hearts. I nodded and was about to speak, when the system suddenly suggested I put on a truly magnificent display, noting that my current combat power was synchronized with my strongest disciple. In other words, I was now as powerful as Wukong, and perhaps even stronger, as I could synchronize with all 5 simultaneously. I paused for a moment and then offered a faint smile. Then, what are we waiting for? I raised my hand and splayed my 5 fingers. 5 beams of light erupted from my fingertips, entering the bodies of my 5 disciples one by one. Wukong's golden light exploded, and the phantom of his divine ability manifested clearly behind him. Hu Xianfeng doubled in size, mysterious runes appearing upon his fur, while Aoli's dragon scales shone with a brilliant, blinding light, his scholarly aura surging into the heavens as he transformed into a true scholar dragon. The Bull Demon King hurriedly covered his card, golden light erupting from his eyes. The Great Peng spread its wings, its speed reaching a brand new realm. All 5 disciples achieved breakthroughs simultaneously, their cultivation levels soaring. Buddha was stunned, the bodhisattvas were aghast, and the immortals across the 3 realms trembled. What manner of sorcery is this? With a mere flick of his wrist, he has enabled these great demons to break through. Taibai Jingxing muttered to himself. What is the true origin of this person? I stood with my arms crossed, speaking slowly. Before we continue the lecture today, I shall show you all what true foundation entails. As I spoke, my thoughts shifted, and my figure vanished instantly. Upon reappearing, I had already reached the highest peak of Mount Ling. The 5 disciples followed closely, hovering beside me, as Buddha and the bodhisattvas flew out from the great hall. I raised my head, my voice echoing throughout the 3 realms. 500 years ago I spoke of the highest good being like water. Today I speak of the great Tao being simplicity itself. I raised my right hand, light converging within my palm. A pillar of brilliance shot skyward, piercing the heavens. It surged straight through the 33 heavens before erupting, transforming into countless specks of light that descended like rain. Wherever a speck of light landed, a golden lotus bloomed in its wake. Mount Ling was soon blanketed in golden lotuses, shimmering like a galaxy of stars. Buddha knelt, the bodhisattvas knelt, and the noble immortals of the 3 realms all fell to their knees. Only my 5 disciples remained standing tall behind me, their eyes brimming with pride. I withdrew my hand and looked toward Buddha, asking if he was willing to hear me lecture for another 3 days. Buddha bowed his head to the ground. This disciple is willing to listen. For the next 3 days atop Mount Ling, I preached the Tao. I spoke of the insights I had gained over the past 500 years, In truth, it was all fabricated nonsense, yet in this world it was regarded as the supreme law. On the first day, I spoke of how heaven and earth are heartless, treating all living things as straw dogs, shaking the foundations of the three realms. On the second day, I spoke of how great skill appears clumsy, and great vessels take time to mature, leaving 10,000 immortals in awe. On the third day, I spoke of how the Tao produces one, one produces two, two produce three, and three produce all things. Buddha achieved sudden enlightenment on the spot, breaking through to a new realm of power. The 3-day lecture concluded. Buddha rose, bowing deeply. Master, please accept this disciple's salutations. I waved my hand dismissively. No need for such formalities. It is well that you have attained enlightenment. Buddha looked at me and asked if I would be willing to remain at Mount Ling as the sovereign of the three realms. I smiled and shook my head. Fengkun Mountain is fine. Having these disciples by my side is enough. Tathagata looked at my 5 disciples and then at me, his eyes filled with profound respect, expressing his desire to personally see me off. I nodded, and our entire party departed from Mount Ling. Tathagata led the bodhisattvas to escort us all the way to the southern heaven gate. The Jade Emperor himself came out to bid us farewell. With a beaming smile, the old lord also approached, cupping his hands in praise. Benefactor, you are truly the supreme expert of the three realms. I returned the gesture with polite restraint, saying, You are too kind. We shall discuss the Tao again when the opportunity arises. Before returning to Fengkun Island, everything remained as it was. I lay in the courtyard, basking in the sun. My 5 disciples diligently continued their cultivation. Wukong was performing push-ups when he suddenly stopped to look at me. His eyes were filled with complex emotions, as if he had something on his mind. I asked him what was the matter. Wukong scratched his head and asked, Master, now that you are so powerful, do you still need us to protect you? Why would I not need you? Once my disciple, always my disciple for all of eternity. Wukong's eyes turned red, and he nodded firmly. Hu Xianfeng leaned in closer and asked, Master, what about me? I patted his tiger head. You are the second disciple. Of course, I need you as well. Hu Xianfeng grinned, looking rather foolish. Atoli transformed into his human form, stepped forward, and asked, Master, should I continue to study the Confucian path? Of course, you must continue your studies. There is still the boundless realm to master. Alio Li smiled, his dragon scales shimmering with a radiant glow. The Bull Demon King pulled out his report tablet. Master, do I still need to continue writing these reports? Naturally, you must continue to write them. The intelligence network of the three realms relies entirely upon you. The Bull Demon King, his spirits lifted, began to write with vigor as the Great Ping flew over. Master, should I continue practicing the expansion of my domain? I looked at him and asked how far he had progressed. The Great Ping boasted proudly, I am now 100 shots, 100 hits. I no longer cause myself to explode. Then continue to train. Strive to achieve 1,000 shots, 1,000 hits. The Great Ping chuckled and turned away to resume his cultivation. I lay on the chair, watching my disciples with a look of deep satisfaction. At this moment, the system spirit spoke up. Host, you are now truly the number 1 in the three realms. I let out a grunt, and it asked, Do you have any thoughts on this? I have no particular thoughts. I simply wish for things to continue this way. Watching them stir up trouble, then you may continue. I shall not disturb you further, and I will close my eyes. The sunlight was warm. The sea breeze carried a salty tang. And from afar, the cry of an eagle practicing its cultivation echoed through the air. Boom! Another explosion. I smiled and shook my head. This foolish bird has been up to its old tricks for 500 years, never changing in the slightest. It is truly a relief.